Looks like that didn't quite work on that one.
Trying to go through the forest is a nightmare. If you think about it, in the forested regions of the Arctic, and that's called taiga or the boreal forest, if there's no trail, the forest is so thick and tight, you can't just drive a snowmobile through it. It's rarely open enough to do that. So the natural highways have always been the rivers. In the summer you can boat on them, and when they're frozen up and covered with snow, you can travel on them. Once we get into the tundra, then where there are no trees, then things change, and now we travel on lakes or over the tundra itself.
Caribou in the Porcupine River. It's been over 30 years since I've been through this migration. The last time it was in summer and we were out of food. This time, just watching the animals move.
The rivers are our main source of traveling when we're in the forested regions. Rivers are a little bit spooky in that the ice can erode from below. You have to be fairly vigilant about open water when you're traveling on rivers, and you're constantly thinking about where is the ice safe and where are you. There have been many incidents of snowmobiles breaking through the ice in a river, and that's a bad situation. So the trade-off is you're not wrestling with brush, but you are on a surface that can be changing from below where you can't see it. On the trip to Hudson Bay, we traveled in the forest in the first half, and then we got to the Mackenzie River Valley. I was used to the Yukon, and that's a very big river, but the Mackenzie dwarfed the Yukon. It's just an enormous river. It's one of the biggest Arctic rivers there are. In places it was more than a mile wide. That's just an enormous river. And what I found interesting, river bends, you know, how a river sort of flows, the size of the bends must scale with the river in some way. So I was used to like the Tanana River, which is near home, or the Chena, where the bend is a couple 100 feet. And at Mackenzie, these were miles long. You would start in the bend, and an hour later, you were still driving around the same bend. It just, the scale was overwhelming. Just this great monster river. Ironically, because of the way it had frozen up, the center of the river was nothing but jumbled blocks. So we had to drive on the shelf ice on the edge of the river. It was safer anyway. We crossed a few times, but mainly we were on the edge of this mighty river. What happens with a river is it's fall and it's freezing, and the river is fairly high, and then with time the flow is dropping, the water drains out and the ice falls in and breaks up. You know, shelf ice, that's on the two sides, remains because it's grounded, but it tips. So you've got shelf ice, and it's a nice highway along the edge, but it's a tipped highway, and so the entire time, if you're on the west side of the Mackenzie, it's dipping east, and you're driving tipped. That doesn't seem like a bad thing for a day, but after like 3 days, I don't want to be on this tipped thing anymore. Could we at least get to the other side? There were some complaints, but not enough to brave being out in the middle of the river where you knew there was this deep channel and there's some danger. In the end, the complaints were minor in comparison to braving the blocks of ice and knowing that you could have a hole in the river. So we stayed on the sides.